Alright, welcome back. We are here with local resident artists here at the shop. T. Anderson has got a show coming up this weekend here called The Color Experience, his first show. And then we got C back.
Always.
Welcome.
Hey,
welcome to the Shopcast831.
We got all the letters here. C and T.
C and T.
That's all be A.
Yeah.
That makes us a cat.
Cat. Well, we got a dog in here. So,
sorry.
Yeah, give everyone the scoop on the art show this weekend.
So it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday, I guess, is 5 to 9. Saturday's 12 to 5, and Sunday's 12 to 5.
Okay.
Gonna have 19 paintings and 1 longboard foamy. So that's exciting. First experience epoxying, so it was okay. But
yeah, we were talking about that this morning.
Yeah, it'll get better with time, but
looks good, man. Yeah, I'm super excited about this. Like, he's got a lot of big pieces, super colorful. Like, it's a good name for it. Color Experience. Definitely gonna be wowed by all the colors that pop out at you in this one. And we kind of gonna do a different setup than you've seen at the last 2 shows. So definitely sign up at theshopmonterey.com. Make sure an RSVP. You could go, I mean, it's a free event if you want to, but you can also sign up for VIP packages. Get a print and Little Luna cheese cone, and then some McIntyre wines.
Delicious wines.
Yeah. So tell me, T, what made you get into art?
what made me get into art? I have no idea. I've just been doing it since I was a kid, and I had a 7th grade art teacher. I was like about ready to stop drawing and stuff because I just wasn't really impressed with anything I did. And she taught me contrast, and so I picked up charcoal, and that kind of got it going.
Yeah, I like charcoal.
That's interesting because charcoal is, black and white, I guess, and now you have over here with the color experience, so that's growth right there.
It's a journey, right?
From charcoal to what you get oils now, huh?
Yeah, my wife got me oils. I think it's 4 years ago, and so I was doing all acrylic before that, and I kind of was just missing something. And when I got oils, I never turned back.
Okay. Interesting.
So all my surf stuff is acrylic.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
You mean like the little surf fins? And
The fins, the boards.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Huh. So when did you start painting as opposed to just the charcoal situation?
That is a good question.
Yeah,
I have no idea. Gosh, probably when I was like 15, 16. I took a multimedia design course for like a trade college when I was graduated high school. And so we did that's what I started using gouache, and that did like a Woodstock girl at a festival, and that was pretty neat. So
nice. Natalia's trying to get me into gouache.
I have some if you want to use it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many things that people want me to do. I'm like, okay.
Just let me be. Let me do what I want to do.
That's with me. Like I've just worked with acrylic for so long that I feel like I can emulate oil. I can emulate anything with acrylic.
Can you emulate watercolor?
I can emulate watercolor.
Oh,
too.
snap!
I can emulate watercolor with oil. So that's
I feel like if you master one medium, you can kind of emulate all the others, but
I don't think I'll ever master any, but it's a fun experience.
We all master it in our own ways.
Yeah, dude, you're blending as guy and like, I mean, sorry. I've seen like your older pieces, they're more like not isolated, but the blending. I've seen you work on this this new paintings that you have, especially with like the Cave series. You're blending, dude. It's fucking out there, like.
Yeah, you definitely we've watched you grow since you
Mhm.
even just been here. So
I grew a lot since I've been here. I think having a dedicated space without having to drag everything into my yard and back it into the house has helped a lot. It's also helped that I make more money than I used to, not in art, but hopefully one day. But I can get better quality oil paint.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
so that makes a huge difference.
it does make a huge difference.
Because I've only worked with the cheap oil,
Ooh.
so that's what maybe I need more expensive stuff.
I mean, it's really expensive though.
I know. That's what I was looking at. Just at Michael's, like the level 3 oils are like, $20, $25 a tube, small tube. I'm like, fuck. But they also last a long time, I hear.
Well, it depends. If you palette knife paint, get the cheap ones. But the Soho cheap student grade oil paints are pretty good. I did a lot of the Cave series in that. And some of the big
There you go.
pieces.
Mm.
But the turquoise that I absolutely love is $60 for
Wow.
the small tube.
Dude.
So when you wonder why we charge so much for paintings, now you know. Some of the paint's super expensive.
Yeah. Some of the canvases are super expensive.
Yeah, then you get into that.
I'm excited. I have one hand stretched canvas in this show, and it's the
Nice.
5 foot by 5 foot. So,
Oh, it's a big one.
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you said like you also have a job, so talk about how you balance the artwork and doing your 9 to 5.
I think the artwork keeps me sane so I'm a web developer, so I don't really believe in left brain and right brain. I think math and art are really tied together, and solving problems, computer programming and solving problems in art are pretty similar to me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to balance them both. Like, I'd rather be painting than being at my job, but
Yeah.
gotta pay the bills, so. But without I also work right across the street, so I can literally just walk over here. So
That must be convenient.
Huh.
Yeah, I noticed that because when you said you were working at the naval station, I'm like, literally
Right there.
right across the street.
yeah, it's all we're working remotely still, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's hard to balance, especially since I haven't had a vehicle. But
Yeah, we won't get into that.
no, we're not gonna get into that. It's too long of a story.
All right.
Damn.
So, I think what brought? How long you been in Monterey?
I moved to Pacific Grove in 2010
Okay.
from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you've been all over, and you have an interesting story. You were like a nomad for a while, or you just bounced around.
Well, I lived in 11 places in 1 year, and that was pretty intense. But I got like a $50 an hour contractor job that was 5 hours a day, and knew my wife for a year, and we packed up a truck and moved across country.
Wow.
What?
That's crazy.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
That's,
How does that happen?
Just ready for a change.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's just not my cup of tea.
Mhm.
And I wanted to surf since I was 5, so, well,
Crazy.
How's the art out there in Pennsylvania?
what art? Oh,
I
mean, Philadelphia's got some sick murals.
yeah, I mean, I wasn't really in the art scene back then. I was just trying to survive. I moved out of my house when I was 16. I lived in the ghetto for a long time. So, I was putting myself through high school and just trying to live.
Were you making art then too? When you were moving so much, or do you like stopped and then picked it up, or?
No, I mean, I painted whatever I could paint. Usually just the walls in my house.
The black and red situation.
No, I actually did Judas Priest Painkiller, the like silver robot with the wings on a motorcycle on my window.
Oh, wow.
Landlord was not happy about that one, but
Wow.
I couldn't really afford canvases and supplies, so it was just
Right.
whatever was around. Piece
So
of
what was-
plywood in the alley.
Nah, that works. What was in PG for you here?
Just that job that I got, and
Just like
I mean, it's hard when you live across country and you don't go apartment hunting and you kind of just find one. But I moved into Pacific Grove and then found out I had an eviction on my record that I didn't know I had in Pennsylvania. And apparently they didn't run it because you can't get an apartment out here from a property management if you have an eviction for 10 years.
Oh, well, that's good to know.
So luckily I just kind of, I don't know, they just let us in.
Lucked out. Wow. Crazy.
Crazy.
So what other talk about some of the journeys of that road trip, that cross country road trip? Did you guys just take your time or did you just go right through?
No, I had 4 days to get here until I started my job, and I got a medium-sized moving truck, a car dolly, and put my wife's Amy. Put her car on the back of the car dolly, went saw her family in Maryland, and then had to drive 12 to 13 hours a day. And I drove it all because Amy did not want to drive a big truck. So just kind of, we did go to Utah, and since I'm a trans guy, I hadn't transitioned by then, and we were going to stop at this place, and we walked into the place, and I think there were like 4 teeth between everybody, and they all turned and looked at us, and I was like, hell no, and we drove to Reno.
Yep.
Yeah, I thought we were going to get jumped, and I'm like, no, we're not doing this. But I saw the most beautiful sunset over the Salt Flats in Utah. That was pretty amazing.
Utah is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, some of my favorite country.
But yeah, we just had peanut butter jelly sandwiches all the way across country.
Wow.
Yeah,
those cross country trips.
I've yet to do that. I've only gone to like Utah and Colorado.
Was that the dog?
That was Chip.
Yeah, that was Chip.
I was like, somebody's really hungry.
No.
You're right down there, Chip.
He's just like, I'm bored.
It would be a nice trip to do if you weren't in a rush, I think. You know? Yeah. I don't know if you ever drove on like a 9-way, one-way highway with a moving truck and a car dolly and had to make it from the 5th lane to the 1st lane for an exit.
Yeah, that's fun.
In rush hour. No, not the best time, but we made it.
I mean, at least people will move for you when you're that big. Like, just put your blinker in and say, get out of the way.
I had like 3 people, I don't even know where we were. We were somewhere in the Midwest, and I had gone to like, we stayed at a Super 8 or something like that, and I had gone into a like convenience store, and in Pennsylvania you can't get beer in the convenience store. They just kind of start doing it in grocery stores, but you used to have to go to a beer distributor to get beer, and then you'd have to go to a state store to get liquor.
Wait, what?
Oh, they do that in Oregon too.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's rough. And but for some reason they could sell really cheap beer in pizza shops. But only pizza shops. I have no idea why. I don't know if it was an Italian thing or I don't know, but so I was coming out of this, this little convenience store, all happy I could get beer at this store, and like 3 guys tried to jump me for my 6-pack on the way back to the hotel, and I was like,
serious?
Wow.
Shoot.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it was an experience.
Yeah.
And so when you moved here, that's when you started surfing?
I didn't have the money to start, so I only started surfing, I think it'll be 3 years in February, pretty much right after I got my Jeep.
Okay.
Just didn't have the money to get a board and stuff, so
No.
That's it.
That's obviously a huge passion of yours. Well, you said you've been wanting to surf since you were 5 years old. Like, how did that come about, or why did you think?
I have no, I swam a lot when I was a kid. We had a bunch of quarries that we would go to, so my mom worked 3rd shift, so all summer long we'd go to the quarry and she'd sleep in it, and me and my sister would just swim all the time. So my pop, when me and my sister were like 2 years old, my mom had these dreams that we drowned because we had a lake right behind our house. So my dad just took us and threw us in the lake. So that's how I learned to swim. So like I've always really liked liked water, and then you just see a movie or something and somebody's surfing, and it's like, oh, that looks really
so cool. Right, yeah.
That's like kind of the same story that my dad had, except you had the opposite. Like my dad's dad threw him into a river to learn how to swim, and it traumatized him. Like my dad doesn't like swimming, and you went the opposite. You're like, I love this. It's funny how it affects people differently.
Well, maybe I'm not big on zodiacs, but I am a Cancer, so it's a water sign. So maybe I'm just a crab.
Well, I mean, my dad's a what's it called?
Pisces.
Pisces. So
Oh man, in a river,
yeah,
you
no.
should be good. Maybe you needed to be a salmon if that's the next.
Didn't
sign.
work out for him.
But I mean, a lake and a river are so different. Like a lake, a river
water.
could just river just take you and goodbye.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what river you're thrown into.
Right,
too.
exactly.
Yeah,
As a kid, I got thrown into a pool, and it was one of those things where they were like, in the deep part, I got thrown in, and I would just be doing this, and whenever I started sinking, they would just pull me by the straps of my swimming suit, and then gasp for air, and then back in, and that's how I learned.
Do you swim now?
I love the water, but I'm an Aquarius, so I mean that's not having to do with anything. It's an air sign.
Well, maybe because you were almost drowning and then they'd pull you up for air and then put you back.
They start me early for the life lessons that would happen.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything that makes you appreciate air more than anything, it's being in water.
In water.
I can tell you getting stuck under 3 consecutive closeouts, that air is very important. But also why I will never be a big wave surfer. No.
Yeah. Just to explain the closeouts, it's like when it drops on you back to back.
Yeah,
to back.
it's basically just you can't surf a closeout. The wave just comes up, does an arc, and just slams on you.
Oh. Yeah, I was like, I don't know what that is either.
Well, I just went
exactly what it
surfing
sounds
for
like.
the
It
very.
closes on you.
I went surfing for the very first time during that mural festival that we did in August.
Wait, that was your first time?
First time. Never gone out there, so it made me give a whole. Like I always knew surfing's tough, but to actually get out there and do it, you're like, whoa, holy shit! Like, it's a beast.
I always so I skated, so I have the balance thing down. I just be like, it's just like skating is fine.
No.
I got in the water and just get pummeled, pummeled. It's not. It's.
Well,
it's
the
just,
upper body strength you don't realize, that core strength of just paddling out. That to me was super hard.
Yeah.
Well, most people, are really concerned about the pop-up, and where you really excel in surfing is paddling. If you can't paddle, you can't get past the breaks. Especially if you go to Santa Cruz and get nicer waves, but here is harder. But I was told if you learn how to surf here, you can surf anywhere. So.
Yeah, that's good. I met T before he started surfing, and now that you're a surfer, you're just and I'm like, I gotta get into surfing, dude. I gotta build something over here.
That'll do it.
It might be my pull-up routine too, though.
Oh, I mean, for sure. I'm just saying, you've got the arms for the paddling, I guess. I don't know.
My arms are so short. I watch these skinny dudes just go poof, and I'm like, oh man, it's probably because their arms are 2 foot more into the water than mine. I'm just
They got actual paddles.
Oh, that's a funny image.
Well, no, because you watch everybody carry their board under their arm. I can't even
No, it's hard. It's hard. T took me out surfing not that long ago. When I first was like, I am out of PT. I can finally go back into the water. That was it. I went once and I was hurting for a long time. I was like, no, just holding the board. It's a tough sport. But I'll get there one day. You'll see. What do you got on me? 8 years ahead of me? I'll get there. In age. So I'm so when you started, so I'm I still have time to get to your level,
Yeah, I met this guy. I've seen him lots of times. He's a sup surfer. He's 67 and he started 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So I'm like, man, maybe I'll still be able to do this, but I don't know.
Nathaniel's dad started when he was 50 or something. I'm just
it's never too late.
It's never too late.
I don't know. I think these people just kept their bodies in better shape than me.
Well, that's another thing. I'm like, I don't know how people do it. I'm too old for everything these days. Can't even stay up all night anymore.
They don't tell themselves that they're too old.
That's the trick.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it.
That's right.
One day.
So describe like how, because let's talk about the surfing, because we'll talk about your accident that you had. But first, why surfing? Like, what has it brought to your life?
You know, I don't really consider myself spiritual or like meditation, but surfing is as close to meditation as I could possibly. One, I usually go by myself, and I usually try to stay by myself and not with a group of people. So you get to just be with nature, and also when you're just trying to survive and not drown, you don't really think about anything else.
Yeah.
So you get to actually like escape from. And then when you actually catch a wave and ride it really good, that's fun.
Yeah.
You know? So it's brought, I was actually told by coworkers that they prefer when I do dawn patrol because I'm just more pleasant through the day.
Really?
So I think it brings me a lot of balance. I think it also helps my art because it's like, I kind of had to give myself up to the ocean and be like, okay, you tell me when I go, you tell me where I can go, and like, so I can't control when, what, or how. I have to kind of listen to it, and I find that I have to give myself over to mediums that way rather than trying to control them like I used to.
Yeah.
So.
Nice. And so you were starting to go out at night. What I found was fascinating is like you were using like the bioluminescence, like the algae.
So I've done over 40 night trips, but if you go when they're doing the squid fishing and you get in the squid guts, they glow really nice blue, and you look like the Silver Surfer going through it, which is fun. I guess there's other I didn't know it was the squid guts, but I kept seeing the squid boats each time. Like I would get these blue waves, and I'm like, I don't see any algae, so it's not a red tide. And then I put it together. Oh yeah, it's probably like just the little squid pieces.
That's crazy. Squid guts.
Yeah.
Surfing the squid guts.
Surfing it. That's a fun image.
Yeah.
You're gonna get yourself one of those boards with lights on the bottom so you can surf with lights at night.
Really
cool.
One, my wife is really anti me ever surfing at night again since my accident, and I'm gonna keep telling her it was not because I was night surfing. I'm like, it would have happened in the daytime too, but she doesn't believe that. So I'm gonna end up just having to sneak out.
Well, after
now that you're on the podcast, hopefully she doesn't hear this.
Hi, Amy. We are not condoning any of this.
I won't actually do that.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't blame her after your accident. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
So I had a Massanueve fracture in a 1 foot wave. I was surfing Goofy for I think it was the second time I ever did Goofy, and it was breaking real close to shore. My toes went into the sand, and then my leg kept going, and my femur snapped, which I heard above the crashing wave, and every bone in my ankle came apart. So I had to swim back, and luckily I was surfing with somebody that night. I don't usually surf with people at night, so I was like yelling for them to come and get me. So I came back and got to where I was and took I had my really good my burner like $1,000 board. So she took that up the beach, but left her like 10-foot foamy next to me, and I thought and she ran to get her truck, and I thought we were, pretty good where I was laying, but forgot that tide was coming in. So the tide came in to suck me back out, but it was also grabbed her board, so I grabbed her board and I'm like crawling like on my belly, dragging this 10-foot foamy up. And I get up to thing, and apparently she almost had an asthma attack trying to get her truck. But she comes back and she's like, hop on my back. I'm like, no. She's like, hop on my back. I'm like, no. And so I hop on her back and she just drops me right on my ankle. And I'm like, yeah. So I crawled the rest of the beach. I pulled myself up the handrail, and then I hopped into the back of her truck and walked the chomp out of it.
Dude, I'm imagining that the wetsuit held your shit together.
Yeah, but they also had us sit in the ER for, well, in the waiting, because of COVID, they had us sitting outside, and it was night, and it was cold.
My God.
And my ankle started, it started swelling, and I'm like, can I get a scissors? Can you cut this off? And like my foot is turning purple, and it took us like 40 minutes till they would give us a scissors, and like my toes were like all purple, and I'm like, and then they messed up my splint. They never had, like, the doctor never did that kind of fracture before, and because it's a dislocation and a fracture, he got this other big dude and gave me 3 shots of morphine, and then they tried squeezing my leg back together, and another doctor walks by the room, and he's like, oh, it doesn't pop, because it was dislocated. He thought it would be like your shoulder when you pop it, but they were just
squeezing broken bones together.
Yeah, so they were, and I was screaming on 3 shots of morphine. It was that painful. And then he just put the splint on too tight, and it felt like I had a blowtorch on my foot for 3 months.
Bro. And you had to go back to get that redone because they fucked up the first time? Yeah,
they would cut it off, but since they already messed it up, I had internal blisters that lasted for 3 months. So if you ever, like, you had a blister from rope or whatever, and then you take salt and rub it in it, it was like that for 3 months. Yeah, it was cool. It was great.
Yeah.
How long did you end up having to recover?
Well, I ended up breaking it on 420. My friend was like, oh, you should come over, and I'm like, I don't celebrate 420, I'm going surfing, and I should have went.
You never say no to 420.
So,
Hurt yourself.
It was 2 months, no weight bearing at all. I was on crutches for a week or two after that, and I tried to do bodyboarding and stuff because I couldn't surf yet. And then I got Achilles tendonitis because my physical therapy people had me do too much, and then they blamed me, so I got Achilles tendonitis. I have a tendonitis in the front that are still there, so. But I'm back surfing.
Yeah. I mean, relative just to how bad it sounded, I thought you recovered pretty damn fast.
Yeah.
All things considered.
Yeah.
Could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse, and I opted. Well, I was opting. They put pins in my leg, and the doctor automatically says after 5 months we'll take your pins out, and I'm thinking to myself, oh hell no! And this has been the worst experience like I've ever had. And I'm like, by the time I come back here, my pins will be broken. So I went for my 5-month checkup, and both of them were sheared in half. He's like, no, it takes years, and I'm like, yeah, no, they'll both be broke.
Did they take them out?
Well, no, since they're already broken, they have to dig them out. So unless they bother me, there's no point now. But the doctor figured that he was going to take them out, so he didn't turn the screws in all the way. So they stick out of my ankle like that.
Oh, dude.
No high tops anymore.
Oh, man.
Oh, no.
That was gnarly.
Dude, you're a trooper. I'm a little bitch for pain, so I'm just...
My wife has a very high pain tolerance, and I have a low pain tolerance, but I'm always in pain, so it's just...
You're used to it.
Right.
I mean, I was going to say, you've been through some heavy-duty surgery, too, so...
Yeah.
I said you got bionic spine over here.
I just wish I was like Wolverine. That would solve it all.
I think about that sometimes, like... Just titanium bones?
No, my bolts were titanium, and that shit snapped. This is an anti-an, whatever. Yeah, no, they were 2 titanium screws.
Crazy.
We gotta give some recognition to your cat who would purr on your leg almost every night for your fast recovery.
Every night.
Because you recover fast, and I believe it was the cat.
It was the cat.
Well, no, their purr, the
vibration of their purring has healing properties.
Heals their bones.
No way.
Yeah, so it's actually, there's some studies on humans that it does help human bone growth.
Really?
Yeah. Something like that.
I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, so, I tried to get all 4 of them to lay on it, but only one of them was.
They believe that let's say they, like people doing the studies, they believe that because cats are so malleable, like they can withstand falls really hard. That's why the purring. That's how they heal themselves.
Huh.
But there's actually, you can get sound therapy for healing, and it's the same frequency that a cat purrs.
Huh.
But try having that same cat who's 25 pounds jump on your broken. That's
not as healing.
You're undoing all the healing. Wow.
So is that the worst injury you've sustained, or have you?
I fell 40 foot in a cave and broke my tailbone.
Oh,
Jesus.
That's right. You used to do the cave.
Yeah, that's
cave
why
diving.
I have these 3 cave paintings. I really miss doing caving. I've done over 500 different caves. I used to do mapping. I found Pennsylvania's largest anthracite crystal.
Wow.
I've done some amazing.
Let's talk about that. I'm fascinated by cave. I did a little bit in New Mexico.
We saw that show about the crazy rescues with people stuck in
Yeah.
caves who fell and broke things, and then they had to, more about that, please.
What got you into that?
I just had a couple friends who thought it would be cool. So there's a lot of ends of glacial like rock piles and stuff in Pennsylvania. So I had done like a lot of that type stuff, and then my friends, there was this cave called Peckway, and it's a tectonic cave, so it was an earthquake cave, but the pagans would run through there all the time. So we did that, and then we found this book that was written by this guy in the 30s about all these caves in Pennsylvania, so we'd go out and try to find them in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And so we found a few of them, and then I found out there was a caving club near where I live, the York Grotto. I used to be a National Speleological Society member. And it's part of the York Grotto, so they did a lot of caving, and then I would go to Old Timers Reunion in West Virginia, which would have 2,000 different cavers there. And, so just became a thing.
What about caves? To me, it sounds terrifying.
Oh,
to go.
Amy, I took Amy to what's that? Pinnacles? Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
And we were in Belize and we're tubing in one, and I wanted to go by myself, and Amy she was so mad at me. She's like, hold on, and I'm like, no. So I find them really fascinating. I've done ones where I've had to take my helmet off and squeeze through. I've done ones where you dive 12, 14 foot under the water, find a hole, pop out the other side, and it's a hot spring. That cave, it's Worm River, it's in Virginia, it's cool. It's got rimstone dams, and it's like 3 foot deep, just like a hot tub in the back of a cave.
Wow.
And where do you break your tailbone?
I broke my tailbone in Scotts Hollow in West Virginia. So I met these guys, and they actually own one of the entrances to this cave. And I was really excited to be able to do this trip. I mean, it's 34 plus miles. You could fly 737. The one spot of it is called John's Flowstone. It looks like a honeycomb.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 6 inches with 50, 60 foot drops in. And then you get to the end of that and you do like the barfly. You jump across a 50 foot pit and stick on the mud. Like if you could just spread eagle and stick on the mud. So I got through that, and I thought, I'm golden. And me and my one friend just started speed caving, just running as fast as we could. And I was on top of this canyon, and I grabbed it must have at least been like 400 or 500 pound rock. When I grabbed it, it just came off.
Oh.
And I came off, and it was really weird. It looked like the whole cave lit up in blue, like a blue light, and I could see everything. And I'm like, okay, if I fall and I land on my I'm gonna break my knees. I'll try to bend my knees, and my ass hit a rock. And so it was super painful. Luckily, West Virginia boys had a bunch of weed and some scotch with whiskey and coffee, and I drank that, and I caved for 6 more hours, but I could not stand or sit.
What? You kept going?
I wanted to be, I was invited, because I kept going, I was invited back to do that cave many, many times.
Wow. You earned your stripes on that one, huh?
Yeah, but...
Bro, you hardcore.
I couldn't, I couldn't ride like a Harley. I could ride a crotch rocket, but not a Harley, because they vibrate too much, and just sitting so my tailbone was fucked up for, I don't know, 2 decades.
Yeah, because there's not much you could do for the tailbone.
No.
Sit on a little donut.
Just the donut.
The only thing they do is if it's really like smashed in pieces, they'll suck it out.
Wow. Oh man, that sounds terrible.
What do you sit on?
I guess you should build up your fat.
Gotta get some squats in there.
Yeah.
Oof, oof.
Wow. Yeah. See, the craziest experience I had cave diving is in New Mexico. There was like a manhole in the mountains of Albuquerque. There's just like this one big mountain, Sandia, and everyone knew about this kind of hidden. Well, I guess not everyone knew about it, but there was this hidden cave in the foothills, and my buddy took me to it, and we just went down and like literally crawling down in pitch black, just feeling like the space getting smaller
You didn't
and
have
smaller.
lights?
We didn't have lights, man.
Cool.
All we had was my buddy's camera, which he had night vision on. So we would just use that to like, okay, where are we going? But that was it. And we went down, I want to say like a quarter mile, because it would get really tight and then open up into these massive caverns. And it just kept going and kept going, and we wanted to get to the bottom, but after like quarter mile, we're just like, this isn't smart.
After a quarter mile. That just sounds like a horror movie waiting to happen. Have you guys seen The Descent?
Yeah.
That movie makes me so mad because I'm like, that's not how you do it.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
but with the black light, like the night vision or whatever, I'm like, oh, dude, that's just no, you guys are nuts.
There's a cave in Mexico that you can base jump into.
Oh, wow.
I want to do that.
That's crazy. Yeah. No, what was crazy is being in that kind of pitch black. You don't really get anywhere. Like,
No, I was ziplining last weekend up in Sonoma County, and we had done a night tour, and the guy's like, turn off your lights, it's so dark, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Nah.
Like, I could still see you.
Yeah.
Like, when you can't even see your hand, like, here,
That's what's trippy is like you just put your hand in front and you literally just can't see anything.
How does your imagination not take over when you freak?
Well, it does. That's what's wild about it. Like, me and my buddy were just sitting, we just decided to sit there for like a half hour in silence. And after a while, like, I started seeing all these like weird lights going back and forth and like
They
streams.
could have been worms.
Like, yeah, I don't know what it was, but I just started seeing all these different lights. And I was like, dude, are you seeing that? He's like, no. But he was seeing something different, and that's when I realized, I was like, oh, it's just our imaginations or
Making like
creating something.
Yeah.
You know?
So,
I was in this one cave, and there were these, I don't know, you see critters in caves you don't see anywhere else. But there were
like
these
dragons and shit.
That's why dragons. No, but there were these little worms in this one cave, and they're both asses, because I don't know which side was the ass. But one side had a blue glow light in it, and the other side was red. And they were these little tiny worms in this one cave in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We mapped. So I used to map caves and do a bunch of vertical work. I used to do dig trips.
Wow.
Dude, I didn't know any of this.
This crystal in Pennsylvania, it's an anthracite crystal, which is, I forget, like some kind of calcium pressure or whatever.
Joey
was
would
the
know.
First person in humanity to ever see it.
No shit.
That was, and it's Pennsylvania's largest anthracite, so that was pretty cool.
Ooh.
You were the first person to ever
First
see it?
person to ever see it.
That's quite an accomplishment.
Yeah.
But in the book, I'm not even giving credit because they were mad at me because I used to be able to do 6 3/4 inches was how small the hole I could get through when I was
Holy
like
shit.
18. You gotta exhale, kind of just wiggle, and breathe, and then. So like I just went for it.
No.
I didn't wait for
What?
everybody, and so they just omitted me from the book.
Really? That's
But it's like I know I did it, so that's fine.
That's all that matters. Wow.
That's kind of jacked though.
Oh, well, those people were kind of... They only invited me because I could do that. And then once, they never invited me to go back once they knew that they had found something.
That you found it and they took credit?
Yeah, and
Wow.
so...
Oh well. Well, now the world knows.
Yeah.
At least
Not
the
everyone,
Shopcast
yeah,
knows.
everyone.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Because everybody is all that watches. It's the only people that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The whole world.
Wow, man, you lived a very interesting life. What else? What else that we don't know about you?
Yeah.
I built my first grappling hook in 7th grade metal shop that I used to repel all the time.
Wow, that's cool.
Damn.
Grappling hook.
Yep.
You still use it? Or you still have it?
I do not still have. You know, the only thing I have kept a hold of, and it's something I kept a hold of since I was 12, is a slingshot.
Oh, really?
My pop got me a hunting slingshot that I still have after the. You know, I've had 35 different cars.
Mhm.
I've lived in, I've like.
35 different cars?
Yes, and I only started driving when I was 19, so yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've lived in, you know, probably 60 different places, so.
Was it mostly back in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Amy and I lived in 6 or 7 places since we've been here.
Okay.
So, pretty much, you know, when you don't have a lot of money and everybody's a scumlord, you know.
Just bounce around.
Yeah.
And here the rent goes up so much.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that was a shock going from Pennsylvania to here, like Pacific Grove. Like that's.
Well, it's $1,200 for an apartment when I moved out here in Pacific Grove, and that same apartment I think is $2,200 now.
Wow, easy. Wow.
Yeah, that's why I was like, why PG out of, I mean, you know, but your job, so that makes
Well,
sense.
no, it was just like shopping online. It's what and then I found out, you know, with that eviction that I didn't even know I didn't know I had it till I tried to move somewhere else after PG, and they're like, oh, you have an eviction on your record. I'm like, what? So I used to, my 20s were quite intense, but I lived with a friend, and she ended up becoming like a really bad alcoholic, but she's 4'11", but she just bit and kicked me one too many times, and I moved out, and apparently she got evicted, but since I was on the lease, I got evicted.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. You live and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Who you live with can backfire.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still a really, really good person. Just everybody has their things.
Yeah.
Some people you just shouldn't live with.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's sharing a space where you're doing all your things. Like, you better feel comfortable with the people that are in your own home. Otherwise, it's just going to be a disaster.
And if this was in your 20s, like 20s are that time where you
Figure
figure
that
that,
out.
yeah, to figure all that out.
Okay, it was my late 20s.
The 20, that whole decade.
Yeah.
Oh no, it was 24.
I feel like 21 to 29, you don't grow much.
Yeah, you just go. You just
and
go.
then when you hit 30, you're like, oh, I gotta
Yeah.
grow up.
I think I waited till 40, but that's cool.
Better late than never.
It's different for everyone, for sure. Some
Yeah.
kids are like 12-year-old kids, and they're doing more, taking care of their brothers and sisters, have a job. So.
Well, it's like, you know, moving out when you're 16, it puts you back a little bit, I think, in the development part. But, you know, I did put myself through high school. I put myself through trade school. Got my first job right out of trade school. So.
I mean, it depends, because you were 16, so you had to grow up faster, so you had to figure stuff out faster. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, there's street smarts, right?
Oh, yeah. But, you know, I got arrested once, and that changed my life, so.
Ooh. Tell me more.
I
I mean, if you want to.
Yeah, I got busted for intent to distribute methamphetamines when I
Oh.
was 24.
Oh.
And I was definitely down the wrong path in life, and let me tell you, if you get locked up in federal prison with the possibility of doing 10 years, no possibility of parole, you might change your life a little bit. So at that point in my life, it was a wake-up call I guess I desperately needed.
Yeah.
Because I was white, I ended up only getting possession.
Oh.
And I know it was because I was white, because I watched everybody else getting sentenced there, and I'm like, I don't. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I understand why. But it's D.C., so everything's federal, so it was quite. But they made me do. I wasn't allowed to drive in D.C. But they made me do community service in D.C. when I lived in Pennsylvania.
So you had to commute.
I had to.
Yeah.
And so, I drove down to D.C. on my motorcycle down to 95, and in the ghetto I was doing Habitat for Humanity, and I was doing roofing, and I hear this, awful, alarm, just like burglary alarm or something. And I look over, and it's an ice cream truck with bars on it, and they're selling 40s blunts and ice cream, and this kid's just like, hey, Keith, go get me a blunt. And I'm just like, I can't even wait.
Wow, that's wild.
So that was my dark segment, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, we all have that a little bit, I think.
So after you got out of that, what'd you do? What'd you make changes?
Well, when I got home from jail, which took me over 36 some hours to try to get home, because they confiscated my motorcycle, because I had a permit and I didn't have a license, and so it was a hard trip to get home. Some guy gave me $20 again because I was white. It was this dude from Virginia, and it took me 6 hours to get across D.C. This kid on a bicycle tried to pick me up as like a prostitute. It was really it was really hard, and I sat in this parking lot trying to figure out, I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to try to hitch with trucks or something to get home. And this guy gave me $20, and I wear contacts, so I didn't have my contacts anymore, so I went into the store and I got a phone card, and I got some food. And I went over to this homeless guy, and I'm like, can you read this phone card? I'll buy you, I bought him a burger and a hot dog for him to read this phone card.
Wow, what a deal for him.
Phone cards. I vaguely remember this. Back in the day, right? You used to put.
Well,
oh my God.
You can still get phone cards to, I guess, pay for. I don't know. When they let me out of jail.
Right. I'm like, for payphones, right?
Well, when they let me out of jail, they had transferred me to 3 different jails in 36 hours. So they let me out of a jail that wasn't the one that I got locked up into. So I didn't have any of my personal belongings.
Ah.
So I had to walk to the other jail.
Wow.
And then when they gave me they took all my money because they said it was drug money. My cell phone had nothing on it. So I had nothing. I was just left in D.C. And then I found out later that you can use your bracelet for 1 bus ride. Nobody told me that. You can use your prison bracelet for 1. But
that's crazy.
I ended up getting a hold of a friend, and he was paranoid to pick me up, so it took him over 11 hours to get down to pick me up which is a 2-hour drive. And then as soon as we hit the Pennsylvania border, his transmission in his truck dropped. And then I had to wait for another person to come and get us from there. So I took everything I had and burned it, everything. I set off my neighbor's smoke detector, burned it all, and said, I'm not ever going to do this again. This was really, so I ended up getting a job in State College and did a bunch of web development, and then I switched over to become a programmer. They're like, do you want to program? And I'm like, sure. And so I told myself to program.
Wow.
Were you doing art at all during this time, or that art came I know that you always did it when you could, but you just have so much work. When I met you, I remember you invited me over to your house, and I could not believe the amount of paintings this guy had stacked up. I was just like, how, what?
That is, so I started taking an art I started going to an art therapy group because I was diagnosed bipolar type 1. Mm-hmm. And I was put on a bunch of antipsychotics. I couldn't even finish a sentence. And this was only, probably, 8 years ago now? Maybe 9. So, I had lost all my jobs. I couldn't, I was put on disability. Amy was put in charge of all my money. It was weird. So I started taking this art therapy group at Chomp. And so they just have all these mediums and paint and kind of give a directive, and so that really got me back into doing art. And then I found out I was just trans and not bipolar. So.
Oh, what do you know? Yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
And I'm pretty sure I'm way past cat lives. So.
Yeah. Talk about how you and Amy met.
Amy
Seems
and I,
like she's been in your life a long time.
13 years.
Wow.
Amazing, yeah. We met at State College. She was doing her undergrad at Penn State, and I was working at AccuWeather. And we met at Queer Night because, in Pennsylvania you can only have one night a week, and it's not a good night. It's either Wednesday or Sunday. So we met on a Sunday, but I was dating a very crazy person.
Wait, Amy was out and about on a Sunday night?
She wasn't very early.
I'm kidding.
And for you guys who don't, Amy, what do they call it? Is a little bit of an introvert, but Amy is amazing too, though. So
yeah. Shout out to Amy. We love you.
Yes, we do. So I was dancing, and she said something about getting. I don't know what she said to me, but I thought she said get low, and I'm like, I don't get low. But I was kind of dating this person, so I'm like, oh, I can't do this, and I left. And a month later, she had found me on MySpace and was messaging me, and I wrote a lot of stupid dark poetry at that time. That was all over my MySpace. So we ended up meeting back at that same bar, and with my facial blindness, I made sure I was there super early because I wouldn't know what she looked like. And I had this friend who liked to tell tall stories that were not true in the slightest. And so, this girl's coming who, I want to meet and stuff, and this guy just starts telling her these stories, and I'm like, that never happened, but we met that night and have been together ever since. Well, she did break up with me for a week.
Wow.
Wait, so you were not dating that crazy person anymore? Within a month?
Ended up,
within a month, I'm like,
for the first time since I was 12, I was able to go on a vacation, and I had taken this girl to the beach, only to find out that she had given some guy a blowjob in a bathroom who was married and had kids, and then she ended up going to an institution.
Oh, okay. And they were like, all right, I'm free.
Yeah.
Gotta go.
I guess that's over.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of, and that's how, when I got Emma, actually, my cat that was sick, was right when that happened.
Oh, so Amy and Emma have been.
Well, Emma has been around a year longer
than Amy. Oh, I see. Wow. Wow.
What a crazy.
I know.
Crazy life you've lived.
I know, I always should write. I mean, I should write books.
You should keep writing your poetry. I know MySpace is down. Well, not down. It's still
good
around.
name drop there, by the way, MySpace.
I know.
Don't they do music now or something?
Oh yeah, it's all about music now.
Is it really?
Yeah. It became a music platform, like SoundCloud.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I learned how to do CSS.
That's where we learned how to. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Everyone could be a programmer on MySpace.
Yeah, we all knew coding.
No, yeah. I'm gonna
bring MySpace back.
I'm like, that's not good.
Let us have our moment.
But mine was red and black, like the room I had at the time. So just like.
No, mine was obnoxious, like black background with like neon borders. Like everything was neon, like that green neon color. Just
kind of like the color experience.
Kind of like the color experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had like a whole Bob Marley thing, like crazy. Like there was a sunset in the background, big portrait of Bob Marley. That if you scroll down, it was like
it would follow. Yeah, it would follow. Yeah.
I put a lot of work into mine.
Same. Dude, in college, people would like pay me money to design, like put together their MySpaces.
It sucks that they went away from that, because that was That was really cool. Like, it was more artistically driven. Like, it gave you creative power.
It was legit your space.
Yeah.
Like, you could put whatever
my
music.
space.
Yeah. You could put whatever music you were in the mood. Your top 8 started more drama than anything these days. Like, yeah, bring
that's
MySpace
probably what
back.
ruined it. Was the top 8. That was the end of MySpace.
I don't remember the top 8, so maybe I was over it by then.
Yeah, I remember it was so. At one point there was like top 32. Like they went from
You
like
just kept
4,
adding.
8, yeah, like you could add because people. It was just a thing.
I think it started like top 4.
Yeah, but yeah, you could do top 4.
'Cause it would just show those friends on your
Mhm.
profile, and if you want to see more friends, you had to like click the little link or whatever. But
Yeah, you would go and write on people's walls.
yeah, I don't know why we chose Facebook over that.
It's this minimalistic
Stupid
mentality,
humans,
you
yeah.
know, like because Facebook started with like you can only have a Facebook if you have a college email. So it was like, oh, MySpace for kids, everyone can, you know, and it's crazy and whatever. Facebook was clean and it was all about like, and I'm like,
I never liked it.
Well, I was just excited because at 28 I took some classes at Penn State because I was going to get my computer science degree, not knowing that I would have to do calculus 3 and hadn't done math for like a decade or something. So I was like, oh look, I could get a MySpace Facebook account.
A MySpace. That's the next one.
That would be made. Let's start that.
Let's start
they
that
should
one.
have changed Meta. Get out of here. It's my face. Fucked up with the name.
But no, I was like, oh, I can have this one, but also the job that I had, I was building Facebook applications because you could do an API and then like put your stuff in it. So I would do like weather maps and tracking, and it would be in a Facebook API. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Huh.
So your degree was computer science?
No, I never
Or you
got
never
that
even-
degree.
Oh.
So I was, it just was not a good time. So I ended up going to CSUMB. Well, I went to MPC and did all my undergrad, like, general credits or whatever. And I got my BS in, what do they call it? Communication and design with a minor in computer science.
Oh, okay.
And I was 0.3 hundredths away from magna cum laude.
Wow.
Or did I get magna? No, I was 0.3 from the one that's higher than magna.
I don't know.
There's
Summa.
one that's higher than magna, and I was like 0.3.
I'm an artist. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it was at a time
I
when
knew I didn't have it. That's
Yeah, right, I'm like-
I had I was working on a startup, so I built a whole e-commerce platform for this startup called WeGarden. So I was a co-founder and CTO of it. It was in Philly, and we were trying to end urban food deserts. And there's a bunch of things now that kind of mimic it, but they've started in Frisco and they worked, and we didn't because they chose Philly as the market. But we were trying to like make organic and good foods reach inner city type.
Oh.
That's cool. I was just talking with someone about urban deserts. That's a commendable cause. So what happened with that?
We just didn't, it just was not a good market to try to make it in. So we ended up selling whatever we had left to people. But I never got any money out of it, but I got a lot of experience, and, from being on disability and not having a job, you helped getting back into, like, the market, type, so. And before that, I was I was on a project where we were going to make micro solar grids in India.
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, right. Hey, Chip. So we were going to do micro solar grids in India because, a lot of places, people don't have power, and we wanted to have it so every village could have its own micro solar grid, and then there'd be like a coinage. And so I was teaching myself the Internet of Things and doing a bunch of that stuff, and then there was a bunch of like politics and trying to get permits and stuff that we couldn't do. So some of the people who were part of that startup recruited me for the other one.
Wow.
Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, that was like 605.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, all right, we just opened up a whole new chapter here.
Wow.
Yeah, so the early stuff, did a bunch of dumb stuff, but then tried
Turned
to
it
recover
around.
it.
Yeah. I mean, that's important for people to hear because, like we were talking with Patrick, same thing. It's like we all have seeded passes, we've made our mistakes, but to hear stories about people, going to the depths of their own, basically making their own hells, and then coming out of that and doing something positive, and just sometimes people live in the past and don't let themselves grow because of what they've done in the past, instead of just like, hey, that's in the past. Every day we have a chance to do something new, and to redefine who we are to ourselves. And I think hearing stories like yours, it really does. I mean, you definitely embody that with all the things you've done in your life, for sure.
Yeah, you didn't let that define you and rule you. Just cool. A lot of people get stuck on that.
Well, had I not been white, I would have only got out of jail when I was like 34.
Crazy.
So sometimes you gotta be like, wow, okay, I better do something because I could have lost, a decade of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's eye-opening.
Yeah.
For sure. Could have went multiple different ways, but that was one that.
Glad you woke up with that wake up call, because
Well, you hear about how many people they go into prison. I mean, luckily you didn't have to go into prison, but they go into prison, and then it's really hard once you're convicted and you're a convict, then to try and transition back out into just regular life.
Well, that's also you can't get a job.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So mine was brought down to simple possession, but they messed up my records. So I tried to get a job at the aquarium, and one day I decided, I'm going to do a background check on myself. And I had this charge on my record that I beat old people.
Oh.
Like, I assaulted old, and I'm like, what? And so, like, I called, District of Columbia, and I was trying to figure it out. And they're like, oh, well, we transferred, because my records were paper, it happened so long ago. And whoever transferred my records put the wrong code in. And they're like, well, we burned all the paper ones, so there's no evidence. And I'm like, well, how do I get this? Because I could get my possession, like, expunged and blocked, but this beating old people, you can't get blocked, right? And I was just like, okay. And then a lawyer called me, and I was able to get it corrected. And
Just a bunch of paperwork and paying a lawyer.
Actually, I didn't have to pay a lawyer, which
Oh.
was weird.
Dude, that's crazy.
That never happens.
Never happens.
Well, my I had a public defender because it was one of the reasons I was doing what I was doing was because I was poor and I thought it was a way out, and it wasn't. But the public defender I had, I don't know, I think, like, he didn't speak any English, he didn't say any, and it was challenging to say the least, but at least they ended up getting it straightened.
I know. I'm like, dude, you have like a bunch of lucky aces on under your wing, under your sleeve.
I better buy some more because I feel like they're running out.
Wow.
They only come with 4 in a deck,
I know, that's why I'm like, damn, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy how things like that happen, with your records. It's something you don't even realize. Like, that's happened to me too, where I had a charge for assault with a deadly weapon that I didn't find out about because it never happened, but I didn't find out about until I was traveling to Canada, and they saw it on my record there, and I was like, what the fuck? And
Oh man, I gotta check mine just in case.
Yeah, you're not sure about your record and you're gonna go travel or you're gonna get a job. I highly recommend you check your record.
I highly recommend anybody check their background, at least every few years. Even like you could find something that somebody said you were in collections for and you never were, or whatever, So like.
It's real.
Yeah.
Oh, snap.
You don't want to be in the position I was, where you're in a different country and you're getting put in handcuffs.
Wait, were you trying to get in and they just...
Yeah, I was at customs.
Was that before you had to have a passport to go across?
No, I had to get my passport, so that was what was weird. I went through the whole background check for my passport.
Oh,
and
neat.
Yeah, nothing ever came up, so I thought I was clear. It wasn't until, I don't know how the systems are different, but in Canada it popped up. Because even when I came back and got it cleared up here. That everyone I talked to said there's nothing on your record. There's nothing on your record. So basically, what I had to do was get a letter from the district attorney on the case, and just the letter says that I was never charged with anything like that. So I just got to carry that letter around with me now anytime I'm traveling, so if it ever pops up again, I can have proof.
What like, can't I just pull out of this pull this out of thin air, like, and no, like,
Is
what?
this like an Interpol thing?
Yeah.
What?
Apparently I got some doppelganger out there shooting people. I don't know. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah,
Crazy.
That was shocking, and it
Yeah.
sucked. Like, they allowed me to stay one night, and they gave me this whole ruse that if I found paperwork, they would reevaluate in the morning. But in the morning, I had to go back. They kept my passport, so I went to the Airbnb I had for the night, and then came back in the morning, and they basically said, when they saw me, they had a ticket already to go back. So they were just like, sorry, you can deal. If you come again, we could talk about it, but today, you're
Going home.
You're going home.
At least they buy you a ticket.
No, well, I don't know.
Like, did you ride into cargo class?
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant because they had a security person escort me all the way onto the plane. So I felt like a fucking criminal.
Wait.
Everybody look at you.
Yeah,
like, what's
everyone
this
was
guy
looking at me.
do?
Were you traveling with people, or you traveling by yourself?
By myself.
Oh, I was gonna say at least you didn't have to, like. I mean, it still sucks, but imagine, like, you're doing this thing with, like, I don't know, you're going for a bachelor party, something important that you're going with people, and then everyone is.
Well, I was traveling by myself, but I was meeting my buddy out there, and then there was a girl out there actually that I was meeting, and that ruined that whole thing.
Yeah, try to convince someone that you're not.
Yeah, well, she actually was picking me up from the airport, and so, like, I went up there, and she was waiting for me. I'm like, I can't get out. Like, they're holding me, and like, and I didn't know what was going on. She's just like waiting, and like, we had met once in Seattle, and that's how we knew each other, and we had, partied the night together, and then, we developed somewhat of a relationship from that, and so I was going up to Canada. I was like, well, we can hang out. So I had a whole week planned with her, and then my buddy was gonna come up, and we were gonna hang out. So it was like a 2-week just awesome adventure planned, and couldn't even get through the first day. I mean, she came and picked me up. Like, I got held in question for like 4 hours, and she was waiting the whole time. So, like, kudos to her. Like, she could have just left my ass there. I mean, but she waited, picked me up. We went out to eat sushi, but it was just weird after that. Like, how could I explain away, like, I'm getting kicked out of your country because I got an assault charge, and so, like, tried to salvage it, but I was so upset with the whole situation. I was still trying to figure out how I could get it so that I could stay, and I think she was just over it. She, like, dropped me off, and she's like, alright, bye.
This guy's drama.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not saying. I mean, how do you convince someone? I promise you, I didn't do this. Like, when their country is kicking you out, like, yeah, that sucks.
I basically got cock blocked by Canada.
Oh no!
Fine.
Well, it's cold up there.
Yeah, and everything has for a reason.
Yeah,
right?
I would never.
I
never
do
been
not
with Kristen
believe that.
because
I
of
think things are random chaos, and what you make of it, what happens.
Either way.
I mean, that works too.
It's still the same.
Yeah, because I mean, you were going down a path that was clearly not gonna serve you. I mean, you could have gotten away with it at that time, but who knows the next time, So, and you learned the lesson, I mean, you chose to learn the lesson because we have.
I mean,
our
a lot of people don't.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm like.
I think though, like, if you look, like, none of us are gonna get this opportunity that we know of, but if you can live your whole life, go through it, and then at the very end be able to just reflect and go back through everything you did in your life. I think for everyone there is a purpose, because you walked this path and it created who you were, and if you changed anything you would be a completely different person.
Completely different.
Yeah, so I think not necessarily as like a rule everything happens for a reason, but I think in our own personal lives everything happens for a reason to get us to the point where we are.
Word.
Well, I'm really excited to be at the point I am. So.
Yeah, man,
Yeah,
you're
dude.
doing some cool things.
Freaking thriving here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it's been a hard road, but I
Yeah.
got here.
Yeah. No, we are so happy to have you as part of the shop here. We definitely all enjoy your presence, and we're super excited for this weekend.
I'm sure you guys get sick of the house music, but you know.
We need variety. You know?
Yeah, it's true,
And
it's
we
true.
I
definitely
think
know
I
when
played
you're
drum
around.
and bass today.
Well, I mean,
Totally different.
I'm I mean, we're all different. Like, these guys, I got to plug in my music and I have everyone crying, okay? So, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Like, even Avelino last time, he was like, man, you put that one song and it fucking got to me. And I was like,
I'll have to hit you up when I want to cry.
When you wanna cry?
Yeah, because, like, ever since I started
sound
taking
type.
testosterone,
I got the sound.
I can't cry, so.
I got the sound and I got the
I
shoulder.
used to
ready.
cry at, like, a drop of anything, like, all the time, and, like, I can't now.
Yeah.
The only person that ever really makes me cry is Amy. That's only happened a couple times. We fought, but, yeah, no, I just can't anymore.
Interesting.
It must be frustrating, huh?
It's incredibly annoying.
Especially if you're used to just releasing emotions, like you said, you were able to just have the drop of anything.
Yeah, but, yeah, so then it just is a pent up.
I felt that way when I was on antidepressants. I could nothing bothered me. Like, I could see Trump's face every day, and it wouldn't bother me. Like, it
I
used
could
to.
because I don't know who he is. If like
Right,
he took his hair off, I would
But I just had the sense of like,
The hair.
Like,
just the hair pisses me off.
like I'm a super emo person, and then I was on antidepressants, and I was like, this is what it feels like to be normal, almost, you know. I thought, and at first I was like, hell yeah, but then there'd be times where I felt like I couldn't sympathize. Like, there was like a barrier between, like, when people are sad and I can get sad with them. I mean, like, I'll cry with you, it's fine.
Mhm.
But I was on antidepressants, I was a different person. I could not cry, and it was so, like, frustrating. I'd be in the car with my sad music, like, thinking about sad shit that I was going through, and I'd be like, this is a good way, like, let it out, and then just not being able to. It's hella frustrating. Like,
It is frustrating. I usually end up working out or surfing. if I
right.
can.
I mean, at least
But,
you have outlets.
You know, I was on a bunch of mood stabilizers and antipsychotics, and, like, I don't know, artists are supposed to be emotional. You know, and, like, that stuff, I found it just really killed a lot of my creativity.
Wow.
You know, because you're just dead. No, I mean, not dull. Dead. Yeah, dead.
Mm.
Let's go with dead.
You're just there.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, I feel like my emotions filter what's through around me, or I filter I don't know, it's like, it was just blockers. I was just, like, blocked. I was just there. There was no, like, people were going through hard times, and I was like, I should be really sad right now. I would be really sad right now, but just not being able to be sad. It was
I
weird.
find I'm a creature of extremes. Like, I don't have an in-between. Like, pretty much it's either high or low. There's no in-between. And sometimes that's frustrating, but it's just how I am. 0 to 100.
Yeah.
So you said they had diagnosed you as bipolar. And
Type 1.
So what made you, so when you got that, obviously they were putting you on all kinds of shit.
Whatever was on the pen.
What made you realize, no, that's not it? And
I just really, like, I literally could not finish a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, like, what I said. Like, I could not, and I was just like, I told my therapist, I'm like, I'm gonna take myself off all my meds. And she's like, well, if you do that, I'm gonna stop seeing you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, great, that's good support. So I took myself off the meds, and Amy came in to me one day and she's like, I think you should take testosterone. And I was like, what? Because I fought all my life for equal rights for women and being able to, like, be like, yes, I can do roofing, yes, I can work in the foundry, and, like, fighting with, like, I didn't take, like, who I was in any account. But as soon as she said that, it's pretty much all I thought of. And
Interesting.
so, I'm definitely more in my skin and who I am.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna get at. I'm like, you think, like, the bipolar diagnosis was because, like, maybe you just didn't feel like yourself and you were trying to figure it out, but weren't aware of that.
Well,
Perhaps.
I don't know if your hormones have ever, well, besides like periods and stuff, if your hormones have ever been like out of sync or something. It like totally changes everything. And it's such a small little chemical.
Yeah.
That basically my hormones were just out of sync. You know, I just didn't make the shit I needed to make.
No.
Ah.
I mean, they're finding out that even like head trauma is an imbalance of hormones. Like when football players, like all these stories about football players, like, you know, beating their wives or just being very violent outside of football. It's from all the head trauma. It's something about hormones are built in our head or produced, and when you get a lot of head trauma, it affects that. And I mean, it's the same thing. It's basically when your hormones are out of whack, you really don't have much control over, you know, what you're feeling, how extreme it is, and everything. It just does all kinds of havoc to you. So.
Oh yeah, PMS is a real thing.
That's what's crazy is that they're barely just starting to find that out. That even it's not necessarily like PTSD from trauma victims. It's
a
hormones are out of balance. So there's a doctor in, like, I want to say Ecuador that's doing a lot of new research on just replacing hormones for PTSD and for people who've had head trauma, and it's getting good results.
It's really crazy. Like, I mean, it's such a tiny thing.
Yeah, but it has so much control over like every facet of our lives. You know? Yeah, it's interesting.
I'm glad that they're doing that with football players, because you see like fighters, for example, who beat their wives or whatever, and then they're like, oh well, they're fighters, of course, like there's this stupid, but I mean fighters get a lot of trauma too, like head trauma.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that they're doing it with other people who also have head trauma and different, but they're not like fighters or whatever, so they can't just be like, oh well, of course, because I'm like, no, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing.
Because I went on testosterone and everyone's like, oh, well, your temper must have got worse and you must be more violent and
Right.
And I'm like, no, completely the opposite happened for
Just
me.
can't cry.
And I just can't cry, but like I'm a lot more level and I don't freak out as much and I'm not, I mean, so it's just like people associate things weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say like going through that process of transition help like you feel better and just in your own skin. It took a lot of those extremes out of the picture.
Well, I'm still an extreme person, but I'm not like inoperable, like I just like, to be diagnosed bipolar when, I mean, I probably have a little bit of that in me since my pop is and my mom's sister is, but it's not like something that I can't deal with.
I was gonna ask, did they come up with that because you were having like manic attacks or episodes?
I saw a corpse on my toilet, but
Whoa. That's crazy.
Oh, so you were like hallucinating, like.
Yeah, so I really just think life just got to a breaking point for me, really.
Right.
So, feeling more like who I am allowed me to really be able to step on my game and get back and
Right.
do stuff. But, Amy has always been a great advocate of mine, but like it's hard because like I'm a high functioning person, and once you get stuck in, like I was on Medicare, not Medicare, well I was on Medicare too, but state healthcare, once you're in that system, it is hard to get out. When you get like if I was 51 to 50, I wouldn't be able to rent a lot of apartments. It's on you can't get jobs, so luckily Amy had stopped any of that, but like trying, my therapist dumping me, my psychiatrist tried to get my license taken away, and so I'm a high functioning person, but for people who aren't as high functioning, it's like they have unless they have somebody who's a real good advocate and like can really help them, I mean, the mental health system is awful.
Oh, yeah.
Jacked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why you see a lot of them just end up on the streets. There's no one there.
There's no real help
take care
there.
of them.
Well, they don't want to help people.
They can't make money
They
off
want
of
to
you.
give people drugs,
Yeah.
and instead of being like, okay, what's the root of the problem? How can you make it manageable or deal? It's just like, I knew this one woman who was taking like 14 different drugs, and I don't think she needed to take any of those. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I was on antidepressants once, and that was good enough for me. Like, no.
I can
That was
see
just one
them
drug.
being used like emergency type
Oh,
stuff.
no,
But
yeah,
then
for
it's
sure.
like, okay, let's step in and figure out how to get
Yeah.
somebody to
Yeah.
It shouldn't.
Behold
It
it.
shouldn't be the cure.
Mhm.
It's simply a tool that can be used. Like
Yeah.
if someone's suicidal and
Mhm.
they need to just get out of their own head.
Just for a little bit.
Yeah, maybe that helps, but
Yeah.
they can't be like, oh, okay, now that the antidepressant works, okay, now you're good. It's like,
Yeah.
no, they need that therapy. They need to
Mhm.
figure out, what is making them so depressed so that they can move forward
Yeah.
and
That was my
eventually
case.
get off those antidepressants.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be.
I mean, and it's also like you can get a really good therapist, and you can get one that really fucks you up.
We're not even gonna
horror
go
stories
there.
about therapy, from I could talk about my own parents. I think went through marriage counseling, and you could tell some of these therapists, they just pick a side and then they just want to help whoever they agree with or whatever. And it's like, you're supposed to be the one who's balancing it. How is your therapist picking sides? I've heard some terrible horror stories from people about that.
Oh
But
yeah.
there are some really good ones.
Oh yeah.
sure.
I have a story.
Go.
So, the first time I'm Mexican, and my culture is very much like only rich people have problems to go to therapy.
Mhm.
Exact opposite.
So therapy was not a thing. I was like, nah, this is not. No. But then I was dating someone who was really troubled, and we had a lot of problems. So I think the last draw was couples therapy. Because I was like, I'm not going to therapy. I got this. I can handle this. End up going to therapy together, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I can get on board with this, because it was kind of helpful, that but then that thing happens where they pick someone and they try to help them out. Well, my therapist and my ex ended up dating.
Oh man.
And that
That's
was my
crazy.
that was my introduction to therapy. And I was just floored, a little bit, just
I had there to get help, and then she took my girlfriend.
Yep.
Well,
Pretty
I
much.
mean, Amy does therapy for
Yeah.
foster youth.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's good. There are.
Well,
good
it's 1 in 10.
therapists.
It's 1 in 10. 1 in 10. 1 in 10 therapists will sleep with their clients.
Really?
But yeah, so it's a high number. But after that, I was really messed up, because it was a really messed up relationship. There was a lot going on in my life at that time, and so thankfully, the next person that came into to be my therapist, they changed my life.
Mm.
This person, I was in therapy for 3 years. This human, she did everything to she wouldn't let me take this guy, because I was like, I don't know that I trust talking to, I shouldn't be here. I don't trust being here. And she definitely pulled me out of that, and the best experience now I can't recommend therapy enough. But yeah, it was
find the right one.
yeah, but my first experience was an absolute nightmare. And I'm kind of happy that I went back, because like I said, I was on antidepressants for a while. And get therapy, guys. It's not all bad.
But I always question my therapist, and if I don't believe what they're saying, I'm just like, no.
Well, that was my first. I went to therapy not even knowing what do you do in therapy. I literally was just. They were like, why are you here? And I'm like, because this person's dragging me. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, how do you talk about your feelers with a stranger? I mean, if you have a beer, it's all good. But this is, you know, you don't have a beer in there, so I don't know. It's just a stranger.
There's always that boot flask.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
This is the closest I've ever been to therapy. It's just long, drawn out conversations with people I know.
And it can be. I mean, it is therapeutic to just talk out loud. It's just when you have a lot going on and you don't know how to.
Well, I think this is it. Like, as far as like, if you boil it all down to it, yeah, they have
the tools and the.
Yeah, they've gone through the education, so they have tools to like pull it out of you. But really, anyone that knows how to have deep conversations and is curious. Yeah. That's therapy. Like,
well, yeah.
If you could talk with someone who's curious about you and ask you questions, like it's sometimes a lot of it is just like we keep so much in our own heads and we don't know how to process it in our own heads. But by speaking on things, it somehow
it brings clarity.
Yeah, it just brings that clarity when you see how someone else reacts to it. Like, oh wait, that isn't that big of a deal, or whatever it may be, you know. I've found, at least that's just my personal experience, because like I said, I've never.
You're like, no, I'm not going to therapy.
I've never needed to go to therapy, in my opinion. You know, I've never been in a situation where someone's like, "Hey, we need therapy."
Well, I had PTSD really bad, and that's what I went for. And probably one of the things that my bipolar stuff was happening from. But like, I did the rapid eye desensitization for years.
Interesting. What is that?
Well, there's a couple different methods, but it's you follow a light, and that goes back and forth, and oh man, I can't even remember it I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's like a light therapy, and then you go through parts of what your trauma was, and then it's supposed to desensitize you to it. Because I suffer from chronic nightmares. I probably have 8 to 14 a night.
Still?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I used to have more, so that's good.
They're getting better.
I was told you can't have that many dreams a night, but that's not true. So.
Yeah, I went because I have a chemical imbalance in my head. Like, I'm just a sad person. Not a sad, but
hormones.
depression. Depression, like chronic depression or whatever the hell that is, which is why they put me on antidepressants.
It's really true where they say like the people that you think are the least suffering, because like you're such a happy-go-lucky type personality, but
and then you hear my music and you're like, oh shit.
But then in your head it's something different.
Yeah. So that chemical imbalance. I had to take a couple supplements for that. It's not it's not medication anymore, but also like I don't know, talking to people and having deep conversation. I think it's I mean, I have a lot of friends that I do that with, but when I was going to therapy, I really needed to learn a couple skills that I didn't know how to learn, like boundary setting. I did not. I've always been like a people pleaser type of person, and that's gotten me into some situations where I'm like, yo, what are you doing? So boundary work was like probably like the main thing that I had to work on in therapy, like, and that was really hard. And that's not something that I could get with my friends, because my friends are trying to be supportive of me, and they're trying to just, like, well, it's not as bad, or trying to help me like not feel so bad about it. But I'm like, no, I needed to learn certain things, and that's where it really helped me there. Especially like, boundary setting was number one, and I'm still working on it, but I'm a lot better than I was.
I mean, that's the one thing. Like, your friends know you, and they're your friends for a reason, and they care about you. And sometimes it's good to have somebody you don't know, because sometimes there's things you don't even want to tell your friends.
Yeah.
That you're still trying to tell yourself.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And you do have to develop that relationship. At the they were asking me questions, and I just like, people ask me questions about my life, and I can be so vague without going into details, and it's fine, But when you really start getting into the details of things, and then you see, and then people to validate your feelings too, because sometimes like you'll be sad and people will be like, oh, don't be sad, like look, like people try to cheer you up when you're sad.
Out.
Yeah, like people try to, that was my case, because I tell you, like, so with someone being like, no, it's okay, like, let's sit with that, let's talk about that, let's, you can cry, it's okay.
I used to volunteer for the suicide prevention line in Santa Cruz.
Oh, interesting.
Because I thought I could be empathetic, because I had tried to do that one time. And I feel like being able to connect with somebody rather than like, throwing some blanket statement you read in some book.
Right.
So I mean, it was pretty intense.
That's a hard job.
I mean, it was just volunteer, but yeah.
Right. I mean, it's gotta. It
should be. I mean, I guess volunteering, but it should be some compensation for what you gotta go through, something like that.
To me, the compensation was, I feel like I really actually helped a few people, and that was good.
Yeah, true that.
Yeah. When it becomes a job, it's like, if you're there volunteers because you really want to help out, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, I had to give it up eventually because
it can be too. It's like, I imagine like people from like the people that get the 911 calls.
Yeah.
I always think about those. I'm like, damn, that's
My
gonna
cousin does that.
Really?
Yeah, it's intense.
Yeah, I'm like, how are they doing?
She's. What's interesting about her is like she has that personality of like she closes things off. So like to her it's just like, oh yeah, no, this person. She was telling me about one. I think I'm gonna butcher it, but it was basically like some lady got stabbed in her car, and like the police show up, and like the dude's out in the car with like a knife still stabbing her, and it was just like it was happening. She was on the phone with her as it was happening. It was just
yeah.
And she's just talking about like, oh yeah, this is happening, and I'm just like, hey, well, the police are showing up, and I'm like, how can you be so calm? She's like, I mean, I get these all the time,
Yeah, you get desensitized.
She's
almost.
super desensitized to it, which is unfortunate. I mean, but she also has the person that, like, I've known, even when I was younger, she kind of still had that personality in my head.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Amy is not desensitized to her job at all.
Yeah.
She's been doing it for a long time.
And she deals with some hard stuff. Like, yeah. Amy's a social worker, yeah.
Well, she's a psychiatric social worker, so she for foster youth, so she's more like a therapist.
Yeah.
A little foster youth too, so there's a lot of trauma there.
That's when, like, some people can do it. Like, I have a lot of friends. I have a lot of friends in Mexico who are super desensitized, like nurses, because nurses see a lot of messed up things, and they talk about it like, oh, they'll tell you anecdotes of like the first person that died on them, and I'm over here like about to bawl my eyes out, and I don't even know these people. I'm just like, I could not do it. Like I know that I could not do it.
Yeah.
So props to them peeps who can do that, because we need people like that too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah.
Thanks, Amy.
All the hearts to Amy today.
Well, this podcast has been all about Amy. All right. Well, I mean, how long have we been?
How are we on time? Yeah. Oh, snap. Okay.
All right. Well, this weekend, the Color Experience. If you were listening to this and you don't have your ticket, I highly recommend you go to shopmonterey.com, RSVP. If it's a money issue, you can just get your time slot. But if you want to do the VIPs, I highly recommend it. I haven't had the cheese cones myself because I can't eat cheese, but it's I've heard great things.
They're great.
Yeah, I've heard really good things about them. You can get a glass of wine, and if you go for the super deluxe VIP package, you'll get a print from T here too.
Yeah.
All signed?
Yep.
There we go.
Signed and editioned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
No, I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
Well,
how about you,
let's gotta mention that this room is sponsored by Guido's Food Truck.
Guido's.
Yeah.
Wedos.
Guido's?
Those Wedos. I think that's what it's going for, the Wedos.
Oh, okay. Well.
I wish the food truck was outside right now.
I know. Getting hungry.
I know, it's time. It's that time. Okay, yeah, we gotta wrap it up.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone involved. Oh, also, I know the Hacienda is gonna be opening. It might be open now, starting this week. I think Hacienda is gonna be opening. So I hope I'm allowed to say that. Sorry, Niall, if I
Prematurely.
spilled the beans, but yeah, I think that's happening. So know that in Carmel Valley.
Yep.
Locally Lit is now open, so go visit Johnny, make your candles. I've done it, it's fun. It's a pretty cool process, and Johnny makes it entertaining.
What's your scent?
I got, what did I do? It was like beer, which actually smelled pretty good. That's what I got.
I want my house to smell like a pub.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Johnny's got you.
It smelled nothing like beer, I'll tell you that much. But it was an interesting smell. And then I mixed a couple others. I think one was like ginger, which I like the smell of ginger, but it was mixed with something else. It's an interesting mix, but he liked it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, that's your next candle, man.
The Arsenio edition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Kristen did like a mint something. He didn't like hers. So sorry, Kristen. But yeah, we got new things going on. So check out all the events at shopmonterey.com and make sure you come experience the color from T. Anderson over here.
Yeah.
Yep.
This weekend.
It's gonna be good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna go work on it now.
Yeah. You don't want to miss it.
Start preparing.
It's gonna be completely different than the last one.
All right. Well, thanks for sitting down talking with us.
Yes, this was fun. I'm like, dude.
Yeah.
Wow.
The world's most interesting man over here.
Yeah, seriously.
I need a Dos Equis now.
Let's do it.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.
Say bye, Chip.